Hi, it's Christy of So to Speak, and welcome back to the So to Speak Closet series. I want to kick off our next guest with a story. I don't know about you guys, but in our home, Shel Silverstein is at the top of the reading list. Just a classic go-to, no matter what, Shel comes through for us. And I came across a poem recently that reminded me of our next guest, and I texted it to her, and she immediately responded saying, I cannot believe that you're texting me this poem because it is the exact poem that I printed out when I graduated college and started working at the Lutheran Care. I printed it out and I gave it to all of the staff, and some of the staff still have it hanging in their offices today. And the reason is because our next guest is Lenora DePeace, the Vice President of Development at the Community Wellness Partners. And the poem is focused on how we often dismiss and disregard the elderly in our society. And I want to read it to you today. So it's Shel's classic, A Light in the Attic. This is my childhood copy. As you can see, I wrote inside my favorite poems, scribbled some abstract art on the side. Just fantastic, Mr. Shell. Okay, here we go. The Little Boy and the Old Man. Said the little boy, sometimes I drop my spoon. Said the little old man, I do that too. The little boy whispered, I wet my pants. I do that too, laughed the little old man. Said the little boy, I often cry. The old man nodded, so do I. But worst of all, said the boy, it seems grown-ups don't pay attention to me. And he felt the warmth of a wrinkled old hand. I know what you mean, said the little old man. So please enjoy my conversation with Lenora DePeace as we talk about what it means to be a true healthcare hero and how we can all find ways to have resiliency thrive in our organization and our home. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation.
I mean, nursing homes right now, I don't, aren't necessarily getting the greatest rap with everything that's going on with the coronavirus. So there's been so many positive things that have come out of this. We've had the number of donations coming in, families and kids that are stepping up and just saying, we want to help you. And they're drawing pictures and they're sending them in and they're understanding, what's going on. I mean, we've been shut down to outside visitors since March 13th. Wives not being able to see their husbands, parents not being able to see their kids, siblings, you name it. I mean, we literally are only open to people who work within the building. We don't even allow volunteers to come in. The only reason that residents are allowed to go out is for medically necessary appointments. And this was all done, obviously, with the intent of trying to keep our residents safe. And we had no families that ever came forward and said, we don't, agree with what you're doing. They were wholeheartedly 100% in support of it, but it doesn't make it any easier, right? So I think we're trying our very best to navigate through this situation, as is everybody. How do we deal with this? What do we do? How do we keep our residents safe, but how do we also maintain, relationships for them, which is so important in a world where they've already become very isolated from their life, right? From what they're used to, from where they live, from what they know. So it's been challenging, but we have an amazing team, on both of our campuses. We've had some adopt resident programs. We've had, our social media has been insane. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but our activities departments have done amazing things. They've taken like dry erase boards and they have the residents write a message on it that's actually coming from the resident. And some of them are so hysterical. We had a resident over at our assisted living who said, I'm just sitting here getting fatter and saucier, which was just incredible. I mean, and some of them they put words of wisdom out there. And it's, I mean, we had like 40 50,000 views on one of our posts. It was just insane. It went so viral. It was amazing. So to be able to, there's some glimpses of hope, I think, in all of this, where people have had the opportunity to do things that I think otherwise they wouldn't have been able to. We have people connecting through social media who might otherwise not have done that before, given the circumstances. So there's been some silver linings, and it's really cool to sit back and be a part of that.
That's not surprising, just knowing you, that you're looking at the silver linings too, that you're looking at the opportunities, whether it's people being able to interact with you guys on social media, like that may not have been doing that before, to be able to create it, also to see. So from what you're saying with the dry erase boards, to be able to see your residents in a new light, like you might be a quiet man or woman, all of a sudden they put something hilarious and you're like, I didn't know that person was a wise ass. That's awesome.
Yeah, right. It's really and I think in the same regard for residents too, everybody's trying to make the best of a not great situation. Nobody intended for this to transpire the way it has. Nobody knows. I mean, nobody even knows when we're going to reopen. We're like when you talk about phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, we are the last stage of phase 4, because we're dealing with the most vulnerable population, and nobody's going to argue with the fact that that's where we want to be. That's where we need to be. I mean, our main focus, our priority is our residents. And so, to put them in jeopardy would just be, awful. So we're not in any rush. But by the same token, we understand how important these relationships are. So we're trying to do our best to maintain them, with the means that we have possible. We have people that are going in every day into zipped corridors, taking care of patients, like what you see on the news, the full suits, the gear, the masks, that we're in that right now. Not we, the people that, our teams that are out there taking care of our residents. That's stress to me. I mean, what these people are going through, they're putting their own lives in risk to care for the people in our community. It's as simple as that. There's no, hidden agenda. These people show up every day to take care of people who have a highly contagious virus, and they do it with pride and they do it with dignity. The Observer Dispatch highlighted what went on. We had a resident who was passing. We give every family the opportunity, if a resident is passing, to come in. That's the only opportunity where a family can come in. And this family chose not to, because they were worried about catching the virus and how contagious she was. And we had one of our nurses sit there by her side, holding her hand until she passed. And the family was outside the window. But you want to talk about dedication. I mean, to be there when somebody takes their last breath, that is a resident. This isn't a family member. This is somebody that you chose to take care of. How do you compare to that? So, talk about stress. Yeah. The people that are on the front lines, that are coming to work every day, taking care of our residents. Yeah, there's stress, but there's love, there's compassion, and there's a purpose there too. And so again, going back to that whole silver lining piece of all of this, people get into healthcare, I think, for many different reasons, but I think there's an innate sense of wanting to do better, wanting to help people. And so for that, I think this is a mission for some people, most people, that they're here to do a job that they signed up for however many years ago. And this is a time where you're kind of tested to see, are you there? Are you going to be able to show up? This is grit. It's hard work. It is stressful. And our teams are proving us right. They're in it till the end to take care of the people that they signed up to take care of. And it's amazing.
In regards to people who are like, yes, I'm risking my life, but doggone it, it is so worth it. I don't know. I don't think anybody says doggone it, because it's not 1995, but like, I was trying to censor myself. That was the first thing that came to my head, doggone it. Okay. But the people that are like, totally like, yes, I meant to do this. It is in me. It's energizing me. Even when I'm exhausted, it still gets me going. What about the people who have those moments of, I don't know if I'm in the right job? Like, how can you, if at all, just whether you have a story or whether you have some insight in regards to being compassionate about that versus just beating yourself up about that?
I think it's a matter of the team that you're surrounded by. there's certainly instances where people's own situations are going to play a part in that. We have people who have compromised immune systems. We have people who are elderly that work for us that we would in no way ever want to jeopardize or compromise their situation to be here to take care of people who, they could be around people who could potentially infect them. But then there's people, and I can speak, for a couple instances where I know of, where you get this sense of, there's this uncertainty that has surrounded this whole virus, I think, from the start. Will it affect me? Will I get sick? How will my body react to that? And I think, we only know what's fed to us. So if we see things on the news, or if we hear stories about things, it can certainly give us a sense of uncomfortableness when we put ourselves in that position and think that could be me. When you see the 40-year-old, that's really easy to relate to, that person's on a vent. What's to say that's not going to be me? But then I think going back to the mission and going back to what it is that we're here for, healthcare, the landscape of healthcare has changed over the years, and we have struggled with staffing issues for a number of years. I think right now the turnover rate nationally is like 50% in healthcare, which is ungodly. It's just, there's no way you can effectively run with a 50% turnover. And we're working hard at those numbers, and we actually fall below the average, which is fantastic. But to my point of that is, when you have a team that's standing behind you and saying, remember why you signed up for this. There are people here depending on us to care for them. I think that's where you kind of step into that, throw that cape on and kind of be that, we keep hearing healthcare heroes and that sort of thing. So I think that the team here has other team members to rely on to get them through this, to remind them of why they signed up for this business. And again, when I'm talking, I'm really trying to focus mainly on our frontline workers, and that's not just nursing. We've got, infection nurses that are going through there. We've got environmental services. We have dietary workers. I mean, these people still have to have their rooms clean. They have to be fed. So there's a number of workers besides just our nurses that are in this area that I speak of, who are certainly putting themselves at risk, but they're doing it because they signed up for this.
And it's broader than just who we associate
right
away, right? We think like meds, we think special, I can't think of the phrase, not frontline workers. What is it?
Like a nurse, first responder. Yeah.
Oh my God, I felt like we were just on a game show. First responders, yes. Woo! Nice. Okay, we got it. All right. So we're not just talking about first responders. We're talking, it's broader than that. It's bigger than that. And the first thing I thought of when you were talking about the cape on, it's the Avengers. I keep thinking about that comparison. It's not just one superhero. Like, they're, from what I'm gathering from you, they're feeding off of each other. They're feeding off of, like, keep each other. Yes, you're showing up for so many reasons. You're showing up for your coworkers. You're showing up for the residents. And the more people who show up together, there's so much more power in numbers. I'm just hearing that over and over from what you're saying.
Well, and I think, there's certainly circumstances, and I'll speak to myself on this. We had an area that we had some positive cases, and I was certainly exposed on a number of occasions. And for me, I felt like I needed to know that I had a negative test before I came back to work, just to make sure that I was safe, my family was safe. I wasn't going to spread anything throughout the building if I'm still coming to work. So there's definitely, I think there's a line between being responsible about, the circumstances, but then also being a leader and showing what it means to, to come to work and show up and be an example for what we have to do for our organization. And everybody's scared. I don't think anybody is going to say there isn't some element of being scared of catching it, how your body's going to react to it, and so forth. 9 times out of 10, I think the average individual is likely going to be okay in the circumstances that we've seen. Now, we have 1,300 employees, and again, everybody's being tested twice weekly. We have those that are asymptomatic. We have those who have had symptoms, but the majority of the folks have been able to recover. It's those who have a compromised immune system when we're talking about our population that we care for, or anybody who might have an underlying health condition that would be sick. Those are the people that need to be protected.
I would love to hear just a best story from you, like just something that's, think about like something that just absolutely warmed your heart in regards to what family members have done for residents and their loved ones, or what employees have done that you're like that. And I'll take more than one. So if you have more than one.
Yeah, I've got a couple examples. So we did a post on Facebook in the very early stages. PPE was something we were worried about. So we were, knowing that we were going to have everybody kind of geared up every day. Masks were mandatory. And then of course, if you have COVID in the building, the requirements of PPE change. You need gowns and you need N95 masks and you need face shields. And so in the beginning, we kind of put out this like SOS about if anybody will be willing to make us masks. Thousands of masks came in from people that we didn't even know. They were just coming in the mail. They were getting dropped off at the front doors with just, hope you're doing well. We're thinking of you. We support you. Stay safe, stay well. I think, in times of crisis, that's when people it's like you're at your best and you're at your worst. So the best that we've seen has just been remarkable. On Mother's Day, again, we have people who are completely shut in. They can't see their children, they can't see their mothers, and so on and so forth. So one of our adult homes, the administrator organized a car parade on Mother's Day. And so the residents were allowed to go to the windows and see their families driving by in the cars, beeping their horns, with signs up, I love you, Mom. We've had a number of birthdays. We had a 100th birthday last week. We had, I think, 103 over at the other building. And the family was outside with, and it's the thing that I think gets us, or gets me, and I know gets other people too, is there's that, we have this culture, and I know you can appreciate this, of hugging and kissing when you see someone. And for the last 2 months, when we talk about how these people have been isolated, the only touch they're getting might be from our staff, but it's going to be with gloves on and masks and gowns. And, when we see these families, they come up to the window, there's a barrier, right? There's a piece of glass between them that's not allowing them that touch. And we're humans, we crave that physical touch, and they're not getting that. And I think, COVID has done a lot to our nation, to our world. But I think one of the things that's robbed us of the most is just that ability, that touch that so many people crave, in particular the people that we have here that long to see their loved ones. And when they come, they get that moment to embrace them. And now that's been taken away from them too. So when you look at COVID and what it's done, there's so much beyond just the virus itself that it's impacted. I was supposed to tell you something happy, and here I am going off on like this tangent about all this sad stuff. But I think
so true.
But I think families, and I think we as a company, and I think families have because of all that, have found such great ways to become creative into how to communicate with families. We have iPads. I think they're up to, I know over here a couple weeks ago, they hit 200 visits on FaceTime. And now these residents know what FaceTime is, and they know how to Skype. And, before this, that would never, ever have even had to have been an option. But we're using the means that we have and getting creative in order to maintain those relationships as best as we can. So I think it's allowed us to think outside the box in terms of what relationships look like too. I'm just trying to think. We've had so many different, in just our teams and in the way that they've come together and supported one another. I think that's another positive thing that's come out of this. We've been stronger as a team. Our management has really, relied on one another. There's just been so much more additional requirements that have been placed on us where you've had to rely on others in order to help get the job done. I mean, nothing has been a one-person job. We've had to rely on our teams in order to get these things done. And I think when you're put in circumstances where, the times are uncertain, you don't have a choice but to trust one another and to get through it. And so that's another great thing that I think I've seen and our team has seen coming out of this.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Makes me think right away of how ironic it is that a virus that seems so isolating is bringing people together even more so in different ways than we would have maybe initially have thought of as being like a cohesive way to be a team, whether it's on the home front or work front or community front. And we're making up for it because it's not just when you're talking about touch and residence, like human beings touch, that's just that's in our makeup. And it makes me think also of people who are home alone, who are healthy, and they don't, and I'm not negating at all the residents who have the touch of a gloved caregiver. I'm thinking too of people who are home alone who don't even have that touch. Like it's
completely isolated in their own home. And we started those individuals, like we have several daycare programs on our campus where individuals would come to us during the day just to get some socialization. We had to close those because they were deemed outside visitors, so to speak. And so they also for a month and a half now have potentially not received any socialization.
It's bananas. That's insane to me. Like I don't know how people we'll see on the other side of this. The stats are going to be pretty staggering.
I think the impact of COVID beyond the virus and what damage that's done is going to be so significant.
It is. And it's one of those things that's just unknown. We have no idea.
Right.
We have no idea. The work you guys do is just so incredible. And it's just thank you guys for everything you do.
Thank you. I mean, we wouldn't be here without the community. We're 150 years combined between the two organizations. So
that's a big deal. Wow.
Can't do that without the people that live here.
Do you have any specific I'm saying self-care, it's so much deeper than that. You and I both know that. Like can we change to like self-sanity or let's go with self-sanity. Do you have any self-sanity tips for people who are super stressed, essential workers, don't have an option?
I think you have to put yourself in check, and without somebody telling you that, like you were that person for me who was like, you know what, okay, and it was something so simple as just closing your eyes. I actually did the exercise with my kids at the dinner table that night, and I made everybody go around the table. The one where you said start with your head and start to kind of like shut things down and go to and do you feel the stress in your head? Do you feel it in your cheeks? Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your stomach? So I kind of did that exercise with them. Like, get yourself mad. Think about something that makes you upset and go through your body and check your points. And I told you this, I can feel when I'm starting to get stressed out, I grit my teeth. I'm more consciously aware of that now. But the other thing I know too is when I start to escalate, when I'm starting to get stressed out, we need to allow ourselves the opportunity to take a break. Like there's nothing out there that says you got to keep going. You got to chug along, because I'm not going to be at my best if I don't stop what I'm doing, take a break and collect myself and then get back to what it was that I'm doing. So for example, the other night I came home and I think I had been up super early and worked a long day and then got home and I still had some work I had to get done. And when I know I have something facing me, it's like, I'm like hyper about it until I can get it done and put it away and be done with it. And so my oldest daughter looked at me and she's like, you're stressed, Mom. Like she knew, she could see it on my face. She's like, you're stressed. She goes, I'm going to go draw you a bath. And I'm like, not a bath person at all. Adorable, right? So she draws me this bath. She puts like these petals in the tub. I'm not kidding. I fell asleep in the bathtub. That's how I was like, so like now here's like 3 days have passed and I can start to feel like, I can feel like it building up again in my shoulders. And I can, and I'm thinking to myself, like when I go home tonight, I'm actually like, I learned from between you and my 10-year-old that you need to just take 15, 20 minutes to yourself, readjust. And for I was good for 3 days with that bath. That bath did me in. It was what I needed. And I had my 10-year-old to tell me that.
So my biggest question out of this is, if I leave my house, is she hireable? Like, can I ever come in? No one will be in the house. She can just go up and pedal my bath like crazy.
Yeah, our children are a product of us, right? And my kids, and particularly one of them, when she gets stressed out, I started this little routine with her where I'll draw a bath, I'll light a candle, I get some lavender, I put it in the tub. And I'm so great at doing it for everybody else, but I don't take the opportunity to do it for myself. So what I've really done is taught my kids how to, deal with stress. And I'm actually having them tell me how to deal with, remind me, this is what you taught us, Mom, so we're going to do it for you, which is brilliant. So yeah, I think it just take time for yourself. You're not going to be, it's cliche, but you're not going to be good for anybody else if you don't take time for yourself. And as a mother and as a professional working woman, we hear that all the time, but we do nothing about it. And I think you really have to be adamant about carving that time out for yourself. Don't feel guilty, because I work all day. So I get home and it's like, I haven't seen my kids all day. So I feel guilty. And how should I, how can I take 20 minutes of time to myself when I've been working all day? Well, you know what? My kids are fine. They're well adjusted. They haven't done anything that's caused them to get arrested yet. So I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, doing more than okay, by the way.
Yeah.
I have two questions to your point there. The first question is, why don't we? We hear it all the time. What's your thought on why we don't do it?
It's not, we're taught to think that we're not successful if we don't work ourselves to the ground, or, we're taught that that's not the way that we're supposed to be. You hear all these great quotes about, when a person dies, it's never going to say on their, gravestone, he who lies here worked 40, 50 hours a week. It's going to be about your family. It's going to be about your hobbies. It's going to be about who loved you. And we know all of this. It's not, we're smart people. We know all of this, but there's just something still inside of us that says, I'm not going to be respected if I take a day off, or I'm not going to be, people aren't going to take me seriously if I close my door and I turn off the lights and I do yoga for 20 minutes. There's this stigma that surrounds it. And I think we as leaders need to get past that, because if we don't, what kind of example are we setting for our teams?
Amen, sister. Yeah. Yeah, it was said so articulately, without a doubt. It's yes. And I hope that many people who see this take that advice, because it's huge. It really, and I hope you do too. I hope you watch this and you take it, because you said it, you convinced me, and you said it very clearly.
Well, yeah. I can be very convincing, and we can all be convinced, but it's a matter of actually, and I don't know, do you set it in your phone, but then, you can easily click that decline so quickly. So you have to find a way to not make excuses. And I think that we're all super good at making excuses. Oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or, whatever. And I think there's again, another silver lining in all of this is that it's allowed us the opportunity to get back to what the basics are, and to really have that opportunity to focus on what matters the most. And I think so many of us have had that opportunity. I don't think there's anybody who could argue that they haven't, enjoyed this time that, I can't tell you the number of meals I've had with my family sitting down where, before this, it was like, who was going this direction and that direction. And so I think that the self-reflection, it'll be curious to see what transpires out of this. But I know for myself, I've definitely given myself the excuse. I'm really trying to stick to that, because if I don't, I'm not really going to be good at working. I'm not going to be good for my children. I'm not going to be a good spouse. I think, I know what my limitations are. And I think there comes a point where you have to make that exception and break away and take that time for yourself.
And you just nailed it. What you just said I do believe, like when you first were like, maybe you put a reminder on your phone. No, because what's going to happen is, you're right, you're going to shut it off and be like, or you'll go to turn it off and you'll have like 50 notifications, and then you get distracted. So
Well,
you
yeah.
get a text or whatever. So, but I think you nailed it in regards to finding a way to get, and it's going to be different for everybody, but to get super clear on how taking the time for yourself benefits other people. Like, yes, ideally it is you understanding your worth and saying, I'm taking the time for me because I'm worth it. But from what I've learned from myself, from clients, it really usually does not usually work that way. It usually works backwards. It usually works me taking 2 days of vacation prior to COVID, even trying to take vacation days, people wouldn't. It's a global, that's a global epidemic too, and a different scale, obviously, about people not using all their vacation days and working. Which, by the way, means that you're paying your company if you don't take all your vacation days. Just saying, FYI. Anyway, but understanding that me doing this for myself will benefit, and then fill in the blank. Like, just start it with that. Will benefit your kids, will benefit family members, will benefit your employee. And then it will end up, once you realize that, you'll say, oh, I feel better too. So it benefits me. It's very rare for people to start with themselves, even though we hear that all the time. So who cares? Don't start with yourself, and just do it still, but have it be that by me taking care of myself in this way, whether it's taking a bath, going for a walk, sitting outside and having a cup of tea for longer, or a glass of wine, like, that's benefiting those people because I'm happier, I'm more calm, right, whatever.
You made a point about the phone and the notifications, and it's just a silly little side story, but I did not get a smartphone until about 3 years ago. I was probably the last person on the face of the earth who got a smartphone. And my reasoning behind it, I guess I didn't really like change. I think it was more about just not wanting to adapt to the technology of what a smartphone was going to bring. And there's days where I say to myself, I almost want to go back to like that flip phone, because I've become a slave to my phone. My work emails are on my phone. All the apps that I have with it's literally dinging in my purse right now as we're talking. And I don't know how to prioritize. I feel like, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if I get a work email, I need to address it immediately. And there was a time when I only could get my work emails when I was actually at work. And again, healthcare is a little bit different. We operate 24/7. So there's, things that come up where you need to address them constantly. But I almost have thought maybe I could do, how like you can set your settings for time on different apps and that sort of thing. Like I might just allow myself time in certain areas on my phone and just see if that helps too, because I think we all lack the self-discipline, right? To not to go at this, we can get lost on social media, or, like before I go to bed, I love going on Pinterest. Like that's kind of like my wind down time. But it even interferes with, how they talk about like your nighttime and how you're supposed to process things and actually relax yourself. And it interferes with all the chemistry in your brain. And I don't know all the technical terms of it, but it certainly disrupts your normal sleep patterns and that sort of thing. And so I think that there's something to be said about that too. But I think as humans, we lack that self-discipline. So maybe it's a matter of just setting you're putting your settings on your phone so that you only have 3 hours a day to be on your phone, and that's it. And if you choose to use them at whatever time, you can do that.
I think you're onto something here. People may take it like for real. Like I didn't even know that you could put settings on your phone where you're only on it for 3 hours.
Well, I know that because I have a 10-year-old who has an iPod, not a phone, an iPod, but you can actually manipulate the settings on it. So yeah, I've learned a lot more than I ever wanted to know about technology.
Wow. Well, listen, if we're going to be in the tech world, at least allow it so that our kids, we're not turning a blind eye to it, and that our kids can help us navigate it better, because that's a whole other conversation, but that's where the communication and the trust and all that good stuff comes from.
And I feel like in a time where, again, there's this uncertainty and you've got kids who are looking to you for the answers, and none of us really have the answer right now as to what this is all going to mean. I see great things where they talk about just worry about the emotional well-being of your kids. And I cannot stress that enough. My kids' emotional well-being for me right now And again, with Joe being in education, he's like, they're fine. They're going to be fine. I say they're going to be fine. I think I have to trust you.
I've heard so many people say that this was like one of their best birthdays ever, being included. Like they just loved it.
We've been in a few parades. We did one that was a birthday party of my daughter's friend, and it's a friend of hers, but she's in 3rd grade, so I don't know her, all that well. Maybe a year or two they've been friends, and I literally got choked up because it was surreal, but it was just so sweet. And then we had the girls at the dance studio, the seniors that were graduating, the whole studio got together and they did I think there was 50 plus cars and just going past the seniors' houses and that was just it. But again, the camaraderie, the silver linings, again, and just keep referring to that, but all the silver linings that have come out of this have just been, makes you wonder, was there a bigger purpose behind all of this? I'm so prolific. We should do the end like this.
You just do the end like this. So greasy hair. This is like what you get. Your hair looks so like luscious still. Mine just looks like Cousin Ed.
I just have there's just so much of it. Look at how much.
Children, for God's sakes, how do you have so much hair?
I don't know.
My hair got so thin. I used to have luscious hair. Now it's like I have to work at it. But
there's a lot.
There's too much. Kids, and you have a lot of hair.